Texas basketball gets swept up by the Hurricanes, which turned out to be far from the only upset coming from this chaotic March Madness. And NASCAR takes a pit stop in Austin for a weekend of racing. All this and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome into College Press Box. I'm your host, Jordan Geelhoed. We've got a great show for you this evening, so let's get right into it. Let's start by heading to Kansas City to look at some highlights from Sunday's game between the Texas Longhorns and the Miami Hurricanes. So here we go, Miami coming out of the gate strong, jumping out to a 9-1 lead anchored by Jordan Miller's 27-point performance, but Texas's offense answered with this deep three from Sir'Jabari Rice. The Canes offense, of course, can never be held down long as Norchad Omier ready throws it down with authority. But Texas's offense didn't back down in the first half either, as Timmy Allen, right here with 2 points, had a very respectable day with 16 points. But again, Miami's guards were putting on a show, as you see Jordan Miller's sweet dish to Wooga Poplar's triple. Thankfully, Texas was able to walk into halftime with a pretty comfortable lead of 45-37. And how is this for opening up the second half strong? Marcus Carr up, Dylan Mitchell down. How about that? Mitchell was jumping out the gym on both sides of the court. And now, Sir'Jabari Rice is just showing off, pulling up from 30 and lacing it. But look at this play, right? Okay, Poplar says, oh, Timmy Allen, you got your back turned? Well, whoop, I'll take that one. Thank you. As you can see, Texas might be starting to fall asleep a little bit out there. But maybe this play will wake him up, okay? Marcus Carr dribbling down court. All he sees Dylan Mitchell cutting the basket, up and down again. Boom, another alley-oop. But the story down the stretch was Miami shooting. As you see, Isaiah Wong just perfectly placed this shot on Marcus Carr's head. Nothing else Carr could have done there. This shooting just propelled Miami, as you see in the graphic, to a 10-2 run. After this bucket from Omier, Texas's lead was completely erased. The rest of the game was physical. A lot of fouls and a lot of bodies on the floor. As you see Sir'Jabari Rice, nice pump fake, trying to make something shake here. And then on the other side of the court, you got Tyrese Hunter going coast to coast, trying to cut down on that deficit that Texas found themselves in. But it would prove to be all for naught, as that was the last basket the Longhorns scored on the day. Texas's foul trouble and Miami's free throw shooting dashed UT's hopes of competing in the Final Four, as the Longhorns would be eliminated on a final score of 88-81, and the Miami Hurricanes would be traveling to their first Final Four appearance in program history. I'd now like to welcome in our men's basketball analyst, Carter Yates. Thank you for joining us tonight, Carter.
And not the result that Texas fans wanted yesterday, but we still need to talk about it here on College Press Box.
Absolutely. We're going to power through. We're going to talk about this. So, Carter, as we saw, Texas was leading for most of this game. How did they manage to blow this lead?
I think you said it right there, what makes this loss so crushing for Texas fans is that the Longhorns seemed in complete control for much of the game. Texas led by 8 at the halftime break and seemed like they were about to break the game open when they built a 62-49 advantage with just over 14 minutes remaining. But you want the turning point in this contest? For me, it was that beautiful alley-oop from Marcus Carr to Dylan Mitchell on the baseline to extend Texas' lead to 70-60 with 8:53 left. And that was the final moment the Miami Hurricanes looked to be on the brink. Miami won this game with a 13-2 score run in the 3.5 minutes after Dylan Mitchell's alley-oop slam. And what's even more frustrating for the Longhorns is that Miami did most of their damage from the free throw line. After shooting 3 for 5 from the charity stripe in the first half, the Hurricanes shot 25 for 27 to close out the game in the second. And these were clutch free throws too, they were hitting too. The score was knotted up at 79 with 1:26 left, but Miami nailed 6 consecutive free throws in crunch time to crawl back into this contest. And Texas allowed them to get back in by committing too many fouls in the second half. Miami got some confidence seeing the ball go through the net at the free throw line. Then when Miami got back into the game, the Longhorns went cold from the 3 ball that had built them their lead, going 3 for 12 from deep in the second after they shot over 50% in the first half.
Absolutely. Miami was cashing everything, and the Longhorns just could not buy a bucket, led to the inevitable collapse. Well, now it's time to look ahead to the future, as we've got a few players staying on this team, a few players going, a few possible transfers. What does this team look like next season?
Texas was one of the most experienced teams in the country with graduate students, super seniors, and transfers. Oh my. And that means going into next year, this team is going to look far different in terms of makeup. Let's start with the guys who we know no doubt are leaving. 2 top Two-time All-Big 12 selection Marcus Carr will try to make a professional career for himself after wrapping up his final Texas season, averaging just under 16 points a game. The steady presence of Timmy Allen is also departing, leaving the Longhorns with a hole at the small forward position. And Sir'Jabari Rice is also out of eligibility after his lone season at Texas that, in my opinion, far exceeded expectations, earning him the Big 12 Sixth Man of the Year honors after averaging 13 points a game. Now, there are a few key pieces of this Texas team that have some decisions to make. Dylan Dessou was the hottest player in college basketball after earning Big 12 MVP honors and averaging 17.8 points and 9 rebounds over a 5-game span before a foot injury kept him out of the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 matchups. This was his 4th season of college basketball, so he could choose to go professional or come back for another season. And former Iowa State transfer Tyrese Hunter was thought to potentially be a one-and-done guy for Texas this season before he went to the NBA. And he was always the best on-ball defender for Texas, but he did go through a bit of a shooting slump this year that I think might give him some pause about leaving. If he does come back, he'll be the #1 ball handler for Texas now that Marcus Carr is out of the picture. And there's a new crop of high-profile high school recruits coming to the 40 acres next season. 5-star power forward Ron Holland comes from Duncanville and has early buzz as a potential lottery pick in 2024, as does 5-star combo guard A.J. Johnson. And I mean, Rodney Terry deserves a ton of credit for keeping these guys committed to Texas throughout the early turmoil he went through in the season.
Absolutely, he does. And speaking of Rodney Terry, one of the big storylines for this season was Terry's ability to lead this season, or lead the team as an interim coach. What do you think is his future with the team? And I think we might already know the answer.
Yeah, Rodney Terry, as he continued to coach Texas to a Big 12 tournament championship, and their first Elite 8 appearance since 2008, there were increasing calls for athletic director Chris Del Conte to finally name Terry the full-time head coach. The CDC has stated he doesn't negotiate head coaching contracts during the season, and every time Terry was asked about it in a press conference, he would simply talk about how much he loved the team. And a couple hours after Texas' Elite 8 loss, 247 Sports reported that an announcement about Rodney Terry getting the head coaching job would come as soon as Tuesday. I'll tell you what, we had to wait one day for that. We heard today that he will be back as Texas' head basketball coach. And Texas basketball sees that everything going for them in early December. They had blown out Gonzaga at home. They had a new arena that was the pride and joy of the university. And they had a head coach who Chris Del Conte had referred to 1 year earlier as the prodigal son returning home. And the entire season was in jeopardy of collapse when Chris Beard got arrested. Instead, Rodney Terry righted the ship and exceeded all expectations placed in front of him. The Longhorns went 22-8 under his guidance, had 8 wins against AP top 25 opponents. 29 overall wins are the 3rd most in school history, and Texas tied a program record for most games played on the year with 38. And I'll tell you what, with every new celebration video that dropped after a big win in the NCAA tournament or Big 12 tournament, postseason tournament, you can just tell that these guys wanted them as their head coach, and I'm happy to see he got the job now. I think he's the coach's future. He earned it.
Absolutely. I know that everybody loves him on that team, and just beyond that, he's a darn good coach too, and so I think that Texas made the right move keeping him on board. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Carter. I know it's tough to talk about this loss, but great analysis as always. When we come back to College Press Box, our very own Justin Goosman will be in the studio to talk even more March Madness, so don't go anywhere. College Press Box will be right back. Welcome back into College Press Box. As mentioned before, the chaos that has come from this March Madness tournament has extended far beyond just Texas. Just in case you missed any of the insane results, here's Justin Goosman to break it down for you. Take it away, Goose.
Well, folks, it's the best month of the year for hoop heads. March Madness never fails. Or never disappoints, and this year was no different. Upsets galore and a Final Four that I'm not sure that anyone could have predicted. Let's look back on the tournament that was before the Final Four tips off next week. The best 4 days of the year, in my humble opinion, are Thursday through Sunday during the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. The first 2 rounds saw electric games, great individual performances, and of course, upsets galore. The most notable of the upsets had to be FDU taking down Purdue. Tobin Anderson and Fairleigh Dickinson shouldn't have even been in the tournament, but a rule preventing Mary Mack from making the tournament gave FDU a spot in their first 4 where they would take care of Texas Southern. FDU would then take on the number 1 seeded Purdue Boilermakers and the 7-4 Zach Edey. The Knights, with their average height of about 6'4", would go on to shock the world and take down Purdue in a 63-58 win, thanks to a huge 3 from Sean Moore late in the game. The first round was far from done with the upsets. The next big school that would go down would be Arizona from an Ivy League school, the Princeton Tigers. They dissected the Arizona Wildcats in a narrow 4-point victory, and Arizona couldn't figure out the Princeton defense all game long. Sophomore Blake Peters came off the bench and knocked down 3 threes to propel Princeton past the 2-seeded Wildcats. However, the best game of the first round, in my opinion, was Virginia and Furman. Furman hung around all game, and a crucial turnover from Virginia's longtime point guard Kaihi Clark in the closing seconds led to a go-ahead Furman 3 and maybe one of the best calls from Kevin Harlan that I've ever witnessed. The second round saw another Blake Peters shooting clinic for Princeton as they danced past Missouri, sending a 15 seed to the Sweet 16 for the third straight year. Princeton was the only double-digit seed to make the regional semifinal, but the upsets still weren't done. Kansas fell to Arkansas, and we got another chance to see Eric Musselman rip his shirt off in celebration. Tom Izzo proved once again why they call him Mr. March, getting past former Texas coach Shaka Smart. And with a chance to be the first 16 seed in the Sweet 16, FDU would fall to the Beach Boys of Florida Atlantic, and Tobin Anderson's run as the head coach of the FDU Knights would end after a historic season, as he's now taken the head coaching position with the Iona Gales. The second weekend of the tournament didn't disappoint either. The 2 remaining 1 seeds fell in the Sweet 16 as Alabama would lose to one of the best defenses that I think I've seen in college basketball in the San Diego State Aztecs. Brandon Miller couldn't find a stroke throughout the game and ended shooting an abysmal 3 for 19 on the day. Houston would suffer a similar fate, also facing a 5 seed led by Jim Larinaga and the Miami Hurricanes. A second-half run led by Nigel Pack and Isaiah Wong would send Houston home without a chance to play in a Final Four game in their hometown. Texas breezed past Xavier, and Princeton's luck would also run out in the Sweet 16 against Creighton. 2 candidates, though, for the game of the year came in the East and the West. Kansas State versus Michigan State in the Garden was the Marquise Noel show, dropping dimes from everywhere on the court and scoring the ball almost at will. The lob from Noel to Keontae Johnson with the game on the line was the talk of the tournament, but we weren't done with the games quite yet. Gonzaga and UCLA got the chance to add another thriller to their saga of NCAA tournament games. Drew Timme and Gonzaga would get the best of Jaime Jaquez and UCLA one more time, as Timme would go off for 36 and 13 before Julian Strawther would hit the Gonzaga's second consecutive deep 3 to win the game in the NCAA tournament against the UCLA Bruins. And finally, the Elite Eight, which wrapped up yesterday. UConn made quick work of Gonzaga, sending Drew Timme home for what is likely the final time in his career. The Beach Boys of FAU kept their run going all the way to the Final Four. The Owls of Florida Atlantic have been the Cinderella story of the tournament thus far. Kansas State had a chance to tie it up in the final seconds, but failed to get a shot up. Creighton and SDSU played an absolute dogfight that came down to the wire and would end on a Ryan Nembhard foul. San Diego State went to the line and knocked in one of the 2 free throws to send the Aztecs home. Ryan Nembhard would foul and send the Aztecs to the free throw line where they would knock down 1 of 2 and secure their spot in Houston. Last but not least, of course, the Texas Longhorns versus the Miami Hurricanes. Longhorn fans, I'll spare you since we saw the highlights earlier, but I have a feeling that Texas fans will be thinking about the Brock Cunningham minutes late in the game for a while. Between the over-the-back foul, the missed 3, and a missed layup, Cunningham struggled at the end. But it's not to say that he didn't have a good game, hustling for boards and making the extra play early on. It's just not how Texas fans wanted the season to end. Well, folks, it's been a heck of a tournament so far, and only 3 games remain before a champion is crowned. That's all for me. Let's send it back to the desk with Jordan.
Thank you for that analysis, Justin. When we return to College Press Box, Adam Ogburn will break down all of the action that went down at Circuit of the Americas this past weekend. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back into College Press Box. It was a jam-packed weekend of racing down at the Circuit of the Americas as all three major NASCAR series held races at the track this weekend. Our Adam Ogburn was there all weekend and now joins us in studio for a recap of all the action.
Thanks, Jordan. NASCAR returned to Circuit of the Americas for the third year in a row. All three series holding races. There's the Xfinity Series and Craftsman Truck Series on Saturday, and the big one, the Cup Series, took place on Sunday. But before we get to the Cup Series, let's take a look back at the action from Saturday as the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series took to the track. It was certainly an eventful Saturday here at Circuit of the Americas, and all began earlier this afternoon with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. In that race, Zane Smith took advantage of a timely caution before literally burning it down.
Probably in trouble after this one. I don't know how many more burnouts I'm going to be allowed to do.
A freak accident saw Smith's truck go up in flames as he celebrated his second straight victory at COTA.
And before I knew it, there was whistling telling everyone to get out of the way, and it was kind of scary there for a minute. But yeah, like I said, there wasn't really a mark on it all race long, and then victory lane's kind of a different story.
Early in the race, it was Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain that dominated proceedings. But in a race with lots of contact, yet only 3 cautions, Smith got a yellow flag at the right time. Kyle Busch was forced to pit and restart 16th, while Smith was able to stay out since he had already made his final pit stop. That was all the separation Smith needed to hang on to the victory.
I knew while he was trying to get through traffic, I needed to put together some really good laps. I just did not want him in striking distance. He is so strong under the braking zones. And so, fortunately, I was able to keep him back there, and we were able to get another COTA trophy.
Meanwhile, in the afternoon, the Xfinity Series featured several great battles for the lead, with Sheldon Creed, William Byron, and A.J. Allmendinger, among others, all spending time up front. It was those three, though, who found themselves in the spotlight in the closing laps of the race as A.J. Allmendinger got into Sheldon Creed before holding off William Byron for the race win. But after the race, Allmendinger expressed regret with how his battle for the lead with Creed ended.
Thought I was turning in early enough, and he was still turning to make the corner and just contact. So he has all the right to be mad. I thought I was there, but, you know, it's the way it goes. Everybody's got opinions about it, so it's not the way I wanted to take the lead.
The field got mixed up at times due to a stretch of cautions in the middle of the race, but in the end, it was a duel between Cup regulars Allmendinger and Byron. And yet again, the Dinger was victorious, extending an Xfinity Series record with his 11th career road course win.
I could watch him and see where he was quick, so I just knew I had to try to hit those sections as good as I could. And luckily, that first half of the last lap, I nailed and was able to get like a 5-6 car length gap, so I knew he couldn't get to my bumper at least.
Reporting from the Circuit of the Americas, I'm Adam Ogburn, TSTV Sports. You heard a lot of Cup Series regulars there mentioned in the Saturday recap. Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, A.J. Allmendinger, William Byron all taking to the track. Why? To gain more experience for Sunday's race. The Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix featured all the top drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series, and here's a look back at a wild race from Sunday. There's no shortage of action on Sunday here at Circuit of the Americas in the NASCAR Cup Series race. Now, Tyler Reddick, he was the class of the field all day. But as the race went on and the cautions piled up, leading to a triple overtime finish, the story quickly became how turn 1 up that hill behind me became Calamity Corner. The chaos on restarts left some drivers feeling like they had nowhere to go.
I tried being up top and going on the outside and got spun. I was on the bottom and got slammed into, and it's crazy. I mean, it's big hits.
But even as the caution flags piled up, Tyler Reddick stayed locked in up front to secure his first ever victory for 23XI Racing.
As much as, yes, it can be frustrating to have caution after caution and, oh man, I almost made it back to start-finish line and it didn't go our way. You just have to remove all that from your brain. It's done and over with, and you got to reset and be ready to go for the next restart, because everybody behind you is, grinding their teeth and doing everything they can to get an edge on you.
Kyle Busch was one of those drivers who was eager to get by Reddick on a late race restart. However, he didn't want to contribute to the carnage going on behind them.
I got alongside Reddick there on that one restart into the S's, and I could have forced the issue and pushed him off or whatever. but we ran each other hard, we ran each other clean, and gave each other room. So I'd respect the kid, and he's been nothing but great to me, so I give him respect back.
Reddick led a race-high 41 laps on Sunday and has now won 3 of the last 5 road course races. After joining 23XI Racing this past offseason, he believes Sunday's win was a show progress for he and his new Toyota teammates.
You know, like I said, it was a really big point of emphasis for myself coming into here to try and help Toyota get better on the road courses. And yeah, I'd say that was a success.
Now the Cup Series, they'll be in for quite the change of scenery these next 2 weeks, as after today's 3.5-mile road course, they'll head to 2 straight short tracks, with Richmond coming up next week and the Bristol Dirt Race on Easter Sunday. Reporting from the Circuit of the Americas, I'm Adam Ogburn, TSTV Sports. Tyler Reddick became the 5th driver to win a race this season, essentially punching his ticket to the playoff in NASCAR's current win and format. But now let's take a look at the rest of the standings after yesterday's race. And you see those 5 race winners at the top: William Byron, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, and the rookie Stenhouse Jr., the surprise winner from Daytona. Some other names up there: Ross Chastain, Christopher Bell, they were both in the Final Four last year. Kevin Harvick looking to finish strong in his last season before retirement. And then going now to 9th through 16th place here on our other graphic, we've got Ryan Blaney, another strong driver. Austin Cindric looking good in his second year. And then going down the list, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, strong rebound from RFK Racing this year. And how about Corey LaJoie? I was talking to Spire Motorsports, which is the team LaJoie raced for. I was talking to one of their photographers yesterday. LaJoie, basically the little engine that could, coming in for an underfunded team. He finished 11th yesterday, so a really strong start to the season for Corey LaJoie. And as I mentioned in that Sunday recap, lots of short tracks coming up on the schedule. Let's flip that schedule up on the screen. And some different short tracks too. You got Richmond coming up next week, and then they'll race on the dirt on Bristol. That one's 6 o'clock on Easter Sunday. Martinsville, the half-mile hairpin, coming up in a couple weeks, and then they'll go to one of the biggest ovals, the biggest oval on the circuit, Talladega Super Speedway. That one coming up on April 23rd. So a lot of action at COTA. The big question will be, will NASCAR be back there next year? They have an option to renew at COTA from 2024, and for what it's worth, the track was offering ticket renewals this weekend. So we'll see if NASCAR will be returning to Austin for the 4th consecutive year next season. But that's it for me after a jam-packed weekend. Jordan, back over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Adam. Wow, exciting weekend. Who knew NASCAR could be so much more than just cars go vroom? But when we return to College Press Box, we recap the last week in Texas sports. You won't want to miss it. Welcome back into College Press Box. Now, before we get into the Longhorn sports, the World Golf Championships-Dell Match play was this past week here in Austin. We had our very own Ryan Swantkowski and Ethan Ferguson in attendance, so let's hear what they had to say.
It's been a beautiful week of golf here in Austin Country Club for the World Golf Championship-Dell Match play. I'm standing here at the first tee box where 64 of the top 77 best players in golf teed off for the Dell Match play this week. 2 former Longhorn golfers participated in match play this year. World number 1 Scotty Scheffler and 13-time PGA Tour winner Jordan Spieth. Spieth was unable to make it out of the group stages, conceding his group to Mackenzie Hughes, and Scheffler's tournament came to an end in the semifinals. After forcing a playoff against Sam Burns, Scheffler would end up missing a 3-foot putt for the win and lose the match the following hole. He will go up against Rory McIlroy in the 3rd place match. The championship here will be held between Sam Burns and Cameron Young, and this is the last time match play will be held in Austin after its introduction in 2015. Now I send it to Ryan Swantkowski for an overview of how match play finished, and for TSTV Sports, I'm Ethan Ferguson.
Thanks for that, Ethan. We're now out here in front of the TSTV Sports building here to recap how the championship went down. Both the semifinalist matches went into a further playoff as the golfers, Burns beating with Scheffler and Young against McIlroy, were tied with their respective opponents through 18 holes. Burns ended up getting it done on the third extra hole, while Young only needed the one extra hole to finish it up. So, it's Burns versus Young in the championship for all the marbles. And let's just say Sam Burns was burning it up. It only took the 26-year-old American 13 holes to defeat Cam Young and earn his 5th PGA Tour Championship win, and this was the first time since 2006 that a golfer has won in their debut appearance at the Dell Match Play event. Besides Young winning the point on hole 2, Burns dominated the championship round essentially from the get-go and never looked back. He won 4 consecutive holes, numbers 5 through 8, and even almost hit in his second shot on hole 13 to end it right then and there. Burns now moves to number 8 in the FedEx Cup rankings and number 10 in the official World Golf Rankings of the world. For TSTV Sports, I'm Ryan Swantkowski.
All right, thank you for that, guys. And now let's get into This Week in Longhorn Sports. Texas baseball completed a series sweep of number 14 Texas Tech yesterday after winning a 9-8 walk-off at the Disch-Falk Field. Junior Peyton Powell was the highlight of the game, going 3 for 4 at the plate, hitting 2 homers and driving in 4 runs. And speaking of sweeping Texas Tech, the UT softball team also did just that this weekend, winning their final game 8-3 on Sunday. This win marks their 30th in an impressive start to the season and also marks the first time Texas has swept a Big 12 opponent since April of last year. Number 3 Texas men's tennis defeated number 10 USC 4-1 at the Texas Tennis Center on Sunday to conclude non-conference play and earn their 5th top 10 victory of the season. This win was clinched by singles victories from juniors CM Woldliab, Cleve Harper, and Elliot Spizzeri. Men's swimming and diving finished 3rd at the NCAA Championships this past Saturday at the Freeman Aquatic Center in Minneapolis. This finish means that the Longhorns have placed top 3 at each of their last 9 NCAA championships, and for Coach Eddie Reese, it's his 36th top 3 result of his career. Now let's take a look ahead at This Week in Longhorn Sports. On Tuesday, baseball plays a much anticipated game against Texas A&M at 6 p.m. on the SEC network. The very next day, the Texas Relays are going to be going on, and they're going to be going on for a few days, but starting on March 29th. And on Friday, we got a packed day with women's tennis taking on TCU at 2:30. Baseball taking on Oklahoma State at 6 p.m. on ESPN+. Softball taking on Oklahoma at the same time. And men's tennis also taking on Oklahoma State at 6:30 p.m. Then moving on to Saturday, April 1st, April Fools. These are no April Fools, though. Rowing versus the San Diego Crew Classic is going on early in the morning at 9 a.m. Softball's taking on Oklahoma at 11 a.m. on ESPN2. And baseball's taking on Oklahoma State at 6 p.m. on ESPN+. And rounding out the weekend on Sunday, rowing again in the San Diego Crew Classic, again at 9:15 a.m. Softball, again taking on Oklahoma, again at 11 a.m., again on ESPN2. And you might stop me if you heard this one before. Baseball at Oklahoma State, 1 p.m. on ESPN+. Plus men's tennis versus Oklahoma to round out the day at 1 p.m. on the Longhorn Network. That'll wrap things up for this week's episode of College Press Box. Make sure to tune in to our other shows this week, including College Crossfire on Wednesday and 1-0 Sports on Friday. Thank you to our analysts, everyone in Master Control, our executive producer Samantha Pearl, and everyone else at TSTV. I'm Jordan Geelhoed. Thank you for joining us, and have a good night.